Today I'm going to share with you results of really interesting Tantric left hand path experiment I performed. So I asked one of the negative entities I work with, could certain positive entities, so-called positive entities, be used on a Tantric path? Because I noticed that entities usually revered as positive, such as Shukracharya, can be of the great benefit to the Tantric adept. Actually, without the wisdom of the Shukracharya, the guru of the Asuras, one cannot progress successfully on the left hand path to spiritual attainment. And so I asked one of the most powerful Talic beings, Asura Kalanemi, is it possible to work with Mohini? She is aspect of Vishnu on a tantric path, and he said yes, Mohini can actually aid a tantric adept on traversing negative spaces because Mohini, according to the lore, descended into the same spaces in order to seduce asuras and take from them Amartya, aka nectar of immortality, and return them to the devas. So, I called Mohini and I had only one request. The request was for Mohini to show me what Amartya is, as well as how to reach it. And in return, I offered my own sexual fluids in order to increase resonance with Mohini, a female form of Vishnu. And I don't know did I reached anything close to Amritya, probably not, because I am not worthy. But I will describe what happened in detail. So I used yantra you see on the screen and used the mantra for calling Mohini to essentially build up the resonance. Female form of Vishnu came extremely quickly. After that, I offered her, as I previously said, my sexual fluids to increase resonance. I felt extremely pleasant sensation in the place usually referred to as the third eye. My entire aura was buzzing with extreme positive energy, and Mohini told me that if I want to traverse negative pathways, she can help occasionally, or that energy can be beneficial occasionally, but only occasionally. And she kind of warned me that over expulsion to negative energy, if you work exclusively with tantric entities, can change the way one perceives spiritual planes. According to Mohini, ability to see into the world of devas and asuras and all other spirits is connected to immortality of our souls. And that is the principle of Amartya, the principle of immortal nectar. She claimed that Amartya is a spiritual and physical substance. In the same time, material and immaterial substance, which is produced when the soul reaches certain level of spiritual attainment. If one works too much with asuras and negative entities without any positive influences, there is a risk of soul becoming unable to produce amartya and going into complete destruction, which will make one dormant and technically between existence and non-existence for many eons. Soul will kind of be paralyzed and it will be unable to reincarnate again. It will kind of be in some weird place. But also, I noticed since I started working with Asuras only, and I work with Asuras only for a long time, so I don't summon any positive entities outside of Shukracharya. But actually, Shukracharya can be considered a negative entity too, because he is essentially a guru of Asuras and he resides in Patala. So he is not a classical positive entity by any means. Since I started working with Asuras only and negative spirits, which is what I kinda exclusively do, I noticed that I am able to see spirits less, but I am able to see them in a different way. I am able to kinda feel them, but I am able to feel them in a really animalistic way, in a way which is kinda more internal than external, if it makes sense. So the way how I know that negative entity is there is that I don't exactly see anything as I used to before I started working with negative entities. I kind of feel euphoria and animalistic urges skyrocketing, and that's how I know that the negative spirits are there. So, but since I summoned Mohini and she did something to me, I am able to see spirits again. But the senses I developed while working with Asuras exclusively are also here. They didn't diminish. And so essentially what happened is, I need to reiterate, I called Mohini to help me to understand what Amartya is and to help me to traverse the Talic spaces. She agreed and she kind of helped me to traverse the Talic spaces in her own way. And she kind of explained to me what Amartya is, but she also went out of her way to tell me that I am far from the level of obtaining Amartya, that it is something which is far beyond my grasp and far beyond my reach spiritually, and that I need many years and even many lifetimes of spiritual practice to reach that state. And so essentially this was a weird experiment of working with Vishnu in a Tantric Abhichara context. And I consider it semi-successful in a way. Later on, I called Kalanemi and he told me that if I want to travel exclusively on a Tantric path, my encounters with Mohini should be rare. After I explained what I did and what the gnosis from my experiment was, let's start saying and speaking about how I actually summoned Mohini. Essentially, now when you heard my weird story and testimony of my work with Mohini, I will explain to you how to summon Mohini. So essentially, you have Kleha Maruvoyan yantra on a screen. This is a yantra which brings you into contact with Mohini and allows you to call her up and communicate with her and possibly travel into her realm. Now I will explain the multiple methodologies you can use to contact Mohini, and I will specifically here say how to contact Mohini in two different settings for two different purposes. And before I upload this video, I will send this video for a review to the Iron World Foundation, so I am sure that they are satisfied with the material and with the experiment. So first we will discuss summoning Mohini from more traditional Atamani right hand path perspective. In this perspective, Mohini is summoned to contact positive entities, aka locus. And how it is done is you simply summon her while the sun is at the highest point in the sky, so at noon. At noon, you draw this yantra while talking and chanting Klehamaruvuyan, 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 Klehamaruvuyan over and over and over. Klehamaruvuyan, 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 Klehamaruvuyan. And you focus on positive emotions. After you focus on positive emotions and chant enough times, start drawing the yantra of Klehamaruvuyan you see on the screen and chant while you are drawing. Then, after you finish drawing, simply put the yantra in front of your eyes. Don't look into the details of the yantra. Simply put it in front of your eyes and chant. Focus on chanting and look in the yantra, but don't focus on looking into the yantra. Simply put it in your eyesight. Okay? After maybe 2000 after maybe 40 minutes of chanting, the gate will open and the positive energy will flow through you. And essentially, once the positive energy starts flowing, according to my experience, it is light purple energy. When that energy starts flowing, let it fill your own aura and keep chanting. And if you do this long enough, Mohini, that energy will materialize and you will essentially become able to communicate with Mohini as energy, as consciousness. And then you can ask her to do what she is supposed to do from a Tamani right hand path perspective, which is to help you traverse into positive spaces. But as you know, I am a Tantric practitioner. I am a left hand path guy. I enjoy working with negative energy. So I constructed and did my own ritual dedicated to Mohini as a spirit who descended into the negative realms, just as we Tantrics do, in order to reclaim the nectar from the Asuras. And so, in the left hand path Tantric context, she is seen as a form of entity who can teach us how to ourselves descend into those realms and acquire the knowledge we wish to acquire. So I summon Mohini in a following way. Since right hand path schools prescribe that she should be summoned at day, I summoned her at night, around midnight. They say that you should summon her while focusing on positive emotions, Instead of focusing on positive emotions, I focused on lust. And they advised celibacy. Instead of being celibate, I offered Mohini my sexual fluids, literally, and my erotic energies. And I managed to summon Mohini after 10 to 15 minutes of chanting and looking into the yantra. Energy was still extremely positive, but she came in a really seductive form. And I couldn't resist but to do what I did. And then after I did what I did, she answered my questions, which I asked her. I told you guys what was the answer in the previous part of the video. But there is also one thing she said, which I forgot to mention previously. If one needs to connect with Mohini in a really seductive aspect, which I managed to do, but she told me that I kind of used the wrong yantra for the job. She added that I should reverse some of the symbols of the yantra, but not all of them. But since I didn't know how to reverse the symbols, I will leave that to stronger, more capable Tantric ionists to do, because I don't know how to reverse any of the yantras yet. And also, interesting thing is that out of all positive entities outside of Shukracharya, the Mohini was the only one to support my left hand path tantric endeavors. She simply told me that she can aid me in those tantric endeavors, but if I summon her too much, it can bring to the lack of resonance with heavy asuric beings. But if worked a little bit with her, she can actually aid heavily in resonance with heavy asuric beings. So this is a little bit contradictory answer, but I found it to be practically correct from a practical standpoint. And for whatever reason, if you use Kleha Maruvian yantra with Kleha Maruvian chant and focus extremely on lust, Mohini will come, and she will come in an extremely seductive way, but she will still have that positive and energy of like higher being, of like Vishnu's form. So I don't know what to make of it. But there are two other methods you can like communicate with Mohini. So one method, which is like right hand path method, and this is done on a noon, right? So you go into meditative state, you draw the yantra, and then you don't intend to summon Mohini. Instead, you just stare into the yantra and imagine white light coming out of the lines. Then what happens is you essentially simply have visions and you write them down. While the tantric method of linking with Mohini is essentially you do the same thing you do with Atmani method, but there are differences. If you want to do it tantric way, you essentially draw the yantra, but you do it at midnight, and then you envision kinda lustful energy coming from Mohini's yantra, and you link to that, and then you project your own lust into the yantra. Keep in mind that you are not allowed with this method to ejaculate, and you are not allowed to express your sexuality. in this energy transference method with Mohini, you essentially do energy transfer with her in order to receive visions in a tantric way, in a left-hand pathway, and it works. So I was told by Mohini to share both of those methods, right-hand path method and left-hand path method, but I personally tested only left-hand path methods with Mohini, since I don't consider myself to be a right-hand path practitioner, and I work with Asuric entities mostly. So this was pretty interesting experiment, and Mohini's behavior was interesting. I am extremely attracted to this entity, and this entity can help me in my tantric endeavors, but I don't want to work with this entity too much because there is a possibility of me losing resonance with asuras. But in small quantities, Mohini actually helps me to achieve higher resonance with asuric entities. So this is kinda weird situation. I don't want to stop working with Mohini, but I don't want to work with her hardcore either. I want her to be like an entity I work with occasionally for knowledge once I feel that Asuric energies kinda need a little bit of that seductive impulse descending to them. So that's kind of my experience with Mohini. So I gave you 2 meditations and 2 summoning rituals from 2 different perspectives with full instructions, and I also shared with you my own answers to the questions I had for Mohini. And by the way, yeah, that's it.